Okay, so thanks very much, guys, for tuning in. Sorry about the delay. I haven't done a stream in a while, so I've had some audio issues. But thanks very much for tuning in. This is a great first stream for the British Esports Association. We're a not-for-profit set up to promote and support grassroots esports in the UK. We do tournaments in schools and colleges, and I'm really delighted for our first guest today. Well, I'll let him introduce himself because he's done lots of things, and it's great to have him with us. So, James, please feel free to introduce yourself.
My name's James. Most people know me as Bakery. I'm the business development manager at Dignitas. I was a former pro player. I transitioned into this role almost 2 years ago now, and I'm here to talk about my journey in esports and some careers that other people can have too.
Okay, cool. And so tell us a bit about your current role, I guess, James, before we go back. You're in business development now. What exactly does that involve for Dignitas?
So basically, my job is trying to answer the question of how do you make money from an esports team, which is a huge, wide-ranging question, which no one really knows the answer to. So I'm just trying my best, and I mainly work on the kind of website and social media and merchandise areas of Dignitas. So, for example, I manage the champion relationship that we have, which is one of our awesome sponsors. And actually, I just got a shipment today behind me. You can see I've got some items here. I've got a champion hoodie. I've got this t-shirt. I got all these items today from that awesome partnership. So that's definitely one of the coolest aspects of my job.
Excellent. Okay, cool. So you've been working on that merchandise and things like that, but are there any sort of specific examples you can share with us? I think you mentioned a specific retailer, a deal you had with a retailer. You know, what went into that?
So something awesome I've been doing recently, also with Champion, is we actually partnered up with Foot Locker and Champs, and we put Dignitas branded items into retail stores all across the US and Canada. Hundreds of stores with Dignitas items, and it's Champion Dignitas collaborations. It's in Foot Locker, it's in Champs. It's really awesome, and it's really exciting to work on that. Cool.
Okay, cool. And so going back a little bit then, James, before you worked as business development manager, you were obviously a pro player for Dignitas's Heroes of the Storm team, and you know you've won several tournaments. You've had a lot of achievements there, which is really inspiring. You were also the team captain. Can you reflect on your time with the team, maybe? You know, what was it like being a full-time pro gamer?
Well, it was basically living the dream. It was something I always wanted to do. Well, first I wanted to be a professional sports player, but that didn't quite work out so well. So kind of I found gaming, and that was kind of my outlet for my competitive drive. And I achieved a lot of things. I'm very, very proud of my time there. I would definitely be lying if I said I didn't miss it. I miss it all the time. But it's also really, really difficult, and it's really high pressure and very stressful, and it's a 24/7 job. And I'm definitely very happy to have experienced it, but I'm also very happy to have moved on and found like a really good place where I am right now.
Yeah, definitely. And there'll be a lot of, there'll be people watching this. We'll put the VOD out afterwards, actually. I think we might get a lot more views on the VOD, put it on our newsletter and stuff like that. One of the most common questions we get at the British Esports Association is, how can I go pro? How do I get started? And it's not an easy question to answer because every game has its own tournaments and ecosystem. So, I follow League of Legends closely, but if someone wants to become a pro in, Pro Evolution Soccer or something like that, it's hard for me to give that advice. But for you, who you've been in Heroes of the Storm, you play League of Legends at a high level as well, right? From what I understand, what kind of advice would you give to someone looking to become a pro player?
Well, I think the first thing is always have a backup plan. So being a pro gamer is incredibly hard. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people out there trying to become a pro gamer. So this is not something you can just walk into. You need a lot of talent, you need to put a lot of hard work in, You probably need a bit of luck as well. And all of that means definitely have a backup plan. But, you know, this is the dream for a lot of people. So pursuing it is amazing and absolutely something I think you should do.
Yeah.
I think probably some of the biggest advice I can give is that when you start playing a game, you will kind of know if it's the one for you. Like you can feel almost like it's an extension of your body. Like the way that you move your character and the way that you play the game, it just feels right. And if it does feel right, then that is a game that you have a lot of potential in and you could be really good. But if you start playing a game and it doesn't feel like that, that's fine. You know, have fun with it, whatever. But don't try and become a pro player because it's probably not going to work out.
And at that point as well, I think it's you know, right for me to add, if anyone has any questions for James, I forgot to say this at the start. I was so focused on my technical hiccups on my computer. Please send your questions in, and we can go through some of those as we conduct this interview, and you know, try and help you guys and get any information or advice from James, who's, you know, happy to help, you know, give this advice out and inspire and so on. Yeah, we'll do our best to answer your questions. So going back to your time on Heroes of the Storm, James, you know, could you pick out, I know this is not an easy question, could you pick out any of your biggest achievements, maybe favourite memories from time on the team, your top couple or top 3 sort of achievements?
Top 3. So number 1 is probably winning my first ever European Championship. It was at IEM Katowice 2016, one of the biggest tournaments in the world. There were, you know, hundreds of people there, and we had a really good tournament. It was the first time we really clicked as a team. It just felt amazing. That was my first big win, basically.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite memory. My second is probably IEM Katowice 2017, where I won my first international tournament. So I think there were even more people there that year. A lot of people cheering. It was a whole lot of fun. And my third is probably beating the Korean team MVP Black in the losers finals at
I remember that
mid-season Brawl 2017. I'm trying to remember it, but it was really awesome. It was the first time that a European team beat a Korean team in a knockout match, and I think possibly one of the last. So it was really amazing, especially to be MVP, who was probably the greatest team that Heroes ever saw.
That's fantastic. And do you know what? I remember, I don't remember the first so much because I think I'd only recently set up my news site at the time, but I remember writing about the win in IEM and the win versus MVP Black, and it was just, yeah, time has gone really fast, you know, and obviously Heroes of the Storm isn't as big as well, it's sort of fallen away as an esport, and we can talk about that in a bit, but it's great. It's interesting to be talking to you now, having, you know, written about those events and how they're a part of esports history now, you know. We've got a question, James, the first one here. We've got a couple of comments from In Liquid Colour. Bakery is a treasure. Miss you and Heroes so much. Hope all is well. Purple Heart. So you've got some support there. And we've got Hasbaz has asked, I'm an aspiring Dota 2 caster and I now have about 5 months of work under my belt as well as VODs to show. But how do I get the people who actually do the casting to look at my work over the more established talent? That might not be a question you're able to answer because it's about casting, but I guess how do you set yourself apart from other people out there, other talent, and, you know, get those jobs in esports?
Yeah, I did do a few events as a caster.
Of course
but
you did. Yeah.
You are definitely right that this isn't my forte. I will say probably the biggest thing for me is that there's a natural progression to most things in life, and I think casting is definitely one of them, where you start out doing, you know, community events, and then maybe you do a few more organized amateur, and then maybe semi-pro, and then, you know, you get up to the big leagues. So I think the advice that I have is probably just see where you are on the ladder. Are you right at the bottom? Do you need to start casting events, you know, kind of for free to maybe 10 people? Do you need to start going to ESL and people like that and saying, hey, I'll cast your weekly or monthly tournaments? And just slowly work your way up that ladder. And make sure you keep track of that, because you can definitely see how you're progressing, and you can get a feel for how it's going and where the next steps are.
Yeah.
So that's my advice.
No, that's a really good answer. And on the casting front as well, yeah, you sort of transitioned from a player to a caster, right, for some time. What was that like? You know, did you enjoy that compared to playing?
When I retired as a player, I had so many things that I wanted to do, and casting's one of them, and business development's another, and marketing's another. Is, you know, coaching, still being a player. These were all options on the table. And so I did a few events as a caster while I was basically in that transition period of trying to work out where to go and what to do next. And obviously I ended up here, which is great. But it was great to be a caster. I feel like even though I only did a few events, I got some really valuable insight into the way that production works and the way that talent works. And I think it was really, really helpful for me to get that. Cool.
Okay. And talking about being a pro player as well, like you gave some advice earlier. Being a pro player, this is what I try and tell people, it's not just about, you know, obviously you need to be very talented and have a bit of luck as well, but it's not just about that, is it? You know, what else should people consider when they, you know, if they want to go pro? Because, you know, it's all about managing social media, isn't it? Managing your brand, and what other elements are there that people should consider other than playing at the top level?
I mean, just in terms of, I think the first part of that is even getting to a top level. And honestly, the best way to do that is a great attitude, it's discipline, it's talent, and it's skill, and it's all of that kind of combined, and all equally as important, I would say. And that's something that people don't often think about or talk about too much when they think about being a pro player. And this is a really interesting piece of advice I normally give, is that the best way to become a pro player is not to dedicate every hour you can to the game. The best way is to have a proper schedule and set goals and times and boundaries for yourself. So do your homework, go to the gym, do sports, and basically schedule gaming and improving and reviewing VODs and stuff as a part of your week and a part of your day, and put a lot of time into that. And that's, in my opinion, the best way to even reach the top in the first place. But then, of course, you're right, in that once you're at the top, there is so much you can do, and there are so many areas that you need to be able to handle. And some of them are about brand. And managing your brand is very, very difficult. And it's not something that you learn anywhere else in life, really. So I would say my advice there is just try and be authentic. Try to not say dumb stuff, but not say dumb stuff because you're like, oh, I'm on camera, I need to restrain myself here. Just try and change your personality to not say dumb stuff at all. And then you can be authentic. And then people just people, you know? People like real humans. And then they can kind of get behind you and start supporting you if you just show them enough of you. So regular tweets, regular Instagram posts, regular streams, pretty much.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that approach us don't have any of that yet. You know, they might be quite young, they might be quite shy, they haven't set up their own Twitter accounts and so on. And that is a big first step. And I think as, you know, people contact you and things like that, and your brand grows, your confidence may grow as well. Would
Absolutely.
you say that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started out as a pro player, I think I was maybe 15, 16. There was definitely, you know, I didn't have any accounts, I didn't stream, but that's something that I understood very quickly. If I want to stand out, this is something I should be doing. And so I followed my own advice. I just tried to present the real me as much as possible. Sometimes it worked out well, sometimes not so well, but in the end, you know, that's what it's about. It's just about representing yourself on social media.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you said about scheduling as well. You're absolutely right with that. That's something I hear from other pro players and people in esports, that scheduling is so important. I've interviewed other pros, and they've said, like, it's very easy to get into the routine of just playing games all day and practicing, but they've said that if you take a break, you schedule it, you're more likely to come in with a fresh mindset. It just breaks your day up better, and having exercise and things like that is really important. And I'm only a low elo League of Legends scrub myself. My goal this season was to finally get out of silver, and I made it. But I'm in gold now, and I just made some slight changes in terms of I'd play like 1 or 2 games. I'd go to bed early and wake up early, and then I'd play 1 or 2 games before work, or I'd play 1 or 2 after work. And because I had those scheduled windows, it was easy for me to stop playing. If I lost 1 or 2, I'd stop anyway. And I know it's very different to being a pro player, but what I'm saying is I've scheduled game time, and it's helped me climb. So if someone's super talented and they schedule correctly as well, it can make a big difference, right? What sort of schedule would you, on that, James? What sort of schedule would you say is a good schedule for someone who wants to be a pro, because they will be needing to play a lot, right? What kind of hours are you talking about there?
So I think for me, probably, I was in school when I first started this scheduling, so obviously I'll give one that's kind of around school hours, maybe for a few younger players, and then if there's anyone in chat that wants any other schedules, let us know, and I can go over those too. But essentially, I would wake up maybe at 8 a.m. For school, have breakfast like immediately after waking up, and then get dressed and go to school. I'd then get home, maybe at like 3:30, and I'd play until 5. I'd play 1 or 2 games of League at the time, 1 or 2 of CS. Then I'd eat food at 5. I'd then do homework for the rest of that half hour, 40 minutes after food. And then I'd play around like another 2 hours, so maybe 3 or 4 games. And then do another hour of homework, and then play another, I think it's 2 hours then, and that takes you to about 11 p.m. Where at that point, you would go to bed, and I would read for about an hour, and then I'd sleep at 12, wake up at 8, and repeat. So that's like a good schedule that doesn't involve any exercise. So if I was to do it again, I'd probably recommend some exercise in the second homework block, or the first homework block. But that's like the general, when you're improving. That's kind of what you should aim for. I see a question in chat here about what the schedule is like for a pro player, and they are very different in that all pros, or most pros, are full-time. So this is a full-time day where, maybe it's wake up at like 12 p.m., maybe 1 p.m., because there are a lot of pros stay very late. And maybe you put exercise in before you start, and then you'd start practice maybe at 2, 3, 4 p.m. And you'd play. Practice would then be probably like 8 to 10 hours of your day, with 2 1-hour breaks. So that's either 6 or 8 hours of games. And then after that, it's free time. But most pro players usually have designated time that they need to do individual practice. So this can be things like solo queue, it can be VOD review, it can be anything you want. So, this is a full-time day, and each pro kind of has freedom around what they slot where they put exercise, where they put fun, where they put their individual practice. But team practice is very much every single day, 6 days a week. We start here, we end here. And that's the huge block of your day.
Great stuff. Thanks for your question, Elliot. And hi, R. Buckley98. I'm guessing that's Richard Buckley, the FIFA caster. So hello, Richard. Hope you're well. We're doing a stream here interviewing James Baker from Dignitas about his time as a pro player and giving advice to people who are interested in getting into esports, and also about how he transitioned into business development, or casting then business development. So really interesting chat so far. Thank you, James. One thing I really wanted to ask you, James, was about we had a conversation the other week when we were planning this interview, and you mentioned that you know London quite well to walk around, and I asked you how, because I've worked in London for years and years, and you had a better knowledge than myself, and we was down we were near Marble Arch, a busy road. You mentioned something about having a good visual memory, and I found that interesting. You said that it also helped with esports. Can you talk a bit about that and how that's helped you, having that kind of visual memory you mentioned?
Yeah, of course. So this is something that's basically unexplored within the esports space. There's a huge amount of potential here, and the industry is just not quite developed enough to capitalize on that yet.
Yeah.
But each person has certain skill sets. Maybe it's reaction time, maybe it's spatial awareness, maybe it's pattern recognition. There's a whole bunch of things. My specific skill set that I know I'm very good at is pattern recognition and spatial awareness. And that really helped me in MOBAs like League of Legends and Heroes of the Storm, because I can recognize what an opponent, when they walk up to me, what they're going to do. What timing are they going to throw the stun, and how are they going to throw it. And kind of combining both of those together would allow me to dodge and react. And I played support in both games, so stun them myself, cleanse an ally, etc. Games like CS probably have really good the players there have really good reaction time, because they need to do these crazy flicks, and they need to have very fast accuracy with a mouse, which I'm not sure what skill that is exactly, but MOBA players are a lot less accurate than CS players, despite both being insanely skilled at the game. There's a huge difference there. So try and work out what skills are good for you. It's a pretty difficult process, and you kind of have to work it out yourself, but I think it could be really interesting, and it could be a big advantage for you once you recognize, oh my god, my reaction time is amazing. Like, this means I should play flashy characters in League of Legends, for example, like Zed and stuff like that.
Yeah, I have to say, I used to play Counter-Strike Source back in the day when I was at university, and I wasn't too bad, I was okay. I played Counter-Strike for the first time about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was absolutely shocking. I'm in my early to mid-30s now, and my reaction times have just dipped. And I think it's why I enjoy playing MOBAs casually, because League of Legends it is more slower paced than Counter-Strike. Okay, if you're in a team fight and there's 10 people and there's all abilities going off, it's a little bit faster, but CSGO is very twitchy, and you need great reaction time. So for me, I prefer MOBAs. We've spoken about your sort of transitioning, casting and coaching. One thing I wanted to ask is that esports is still a relatively new and progressing industry. We're reaching a time now where the younger generation, teenagers, they've grown up with esports, and this digital world and the Twitch world, and some of whom will be seeking their own career within esports now and gaming. What should they consider, do you think, and how will that change the esports industry or ecosystem? Because for people like myself, I've been around since Mario Brothers on the old Nintendo Entertainment System, but for the new generation now, so-called millennials, they've grown up with this ecosystem. So how will that change the industry, do you feel, or how will it affect them?
That is an excellent point. So for some context, the biggest fan demographics of esports are somewhere around 25 to 30. That's where most of the fans are, and most of the players are somewhere between 19 and 25-ish. Obviously some exceptions either side, but that basically means that the current generation of fans and players, they didn't grow up with games, or really even the internet. Definitely not internet culture, the same way that the people growing up now do. The the next generation of pro player and the next generation of fan that is, coming of age about now, in school, finishing school, that kind of age. These guys grew up with Minecraft, and they grew up with YouTube, and they grew up with influencers, and this is such a huge cultural shift, and that means basically that the growth of the esports audience is colossal. The potential here for there to be an absolute explosion in the fan base of just esports and different games that rise and stuff like Fortnite is amazing. And so this is going to really change the esports industry, probably in the next 5 years. But it's gonna be pretty crazy. I'm not sure anyone can predict exactly how it's gonna go.
I completely agree, and we're at this point now where we've got a lot of universities, colleges offering esports courses and setting up esports clubs. And we sometimes get contacted by some of those guys looking for lecturers, or can we help with the courses? And we're not able to help with courses. It's not our role as the association anyway. But when they're looking for those lecturers and people and experts to teach the next generation, well, those guys are all still working in esports because esports is still so new.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that ties in with it as well. We're at an exciting place in esports at the moment, but I don't think we're going to fully realise how. I don't think esports will fully realise and reach its potential until a few decades at least, where we have a lot of people that are experts working in it now, who are a lot older and maybe move into these jobs in universities and colleges and things like that. I don't know, what are your views? It'd be interesting, this isn't on my list of discussion points, but what are your views, James, on the universities now, the esports education space? Because esports has been fine without that up until this point. Do you think we need that, or what are your views there?
So what I can say is that I personally don't know a single person who has taken an esports or gaming focused degree that currently works in esports. There's probably some, but I do not know them. I know a whole bunch of people that have dropped out of school. I know even more that finished high school and did maybe some form of diploma or degree or something. And I know a lot that have finished university and done something like marketing or business or computer science. And so whatever you do in life, there are definitely opportunities in esports. I personally don't believe that an esports course makes much sense because a marketing degree will likely give you a much better view in the eyes of an employer, even for an esports marketing job. And the same with almost any other role there. I think that, if esports courses continue to grow, and so you have an entire esports marketing or influencer marketing or digital media marketing course, then that makes a lot of sense to me. But a kind of general esports degree, I don't really see that as being something that's too helpful right now.
That's interesting. And so moving on to another point, as esports grows, as we mentioned, there are people who maybe weren't aware of it or how big it is becoming more aware now. People like teachers, parents, people in our taking part in our school and college championships. Head teachers are having to learn about esports and things like that. What would your message be to those kind of people, parents and teachers who are new to esports, might not understand it and are a bit skeptical?
Well, first off, I do think they are right to be skeptical. Gaming is something that can take a huge amount of time, and it's a whole world. It can have a big effect on people's lives. Yeah. But, and this is a big but, I think the most important thing I can say today, probably, is that gaming itself is not inherently bad. It's not inherently good. It's a tool. It's an environment. It's something that people can use, and I think it can have so many positive effects on people's lives. Modern gaming is extremely social and very engaging. People don't come on and be lonely and isolate themselves. They come on and they talk to their friends all night, and they play games with their friends, and they meet new people. And I don't know how many people that I met purely through gaming, through not only events, but just meeting them online, having them on my team, playing against them and thinking they were good.
Yeah.
It's completely changed my life. And so, just like almost everything, gaming is amazing in moderation, and it's amazing as part of a balanced and healthy life. And as long as you are making sure that your student or your kid is getting the other parts of life too, like sports and exercise and keeping up with school, then gaming is great, and you should just keep an eye on it.
Absolutely spot on, and that's the messaging we share at the association as well. It's like, parents wouldn't let their child play football 10 hours a day, 7 days in a row, because they're going to pull a muscle or twist their ankle. And gaming is the same thing. When you're a pro player, it's different, right? You need to put the practice in, just like professional footballers train every single day before match day. But we do like to push it as something that's played in moderation. That's why we really like the championships, because it's once a week, one match a week, and then there might be time for 1 or 2 scrims. But that's what we try to push, an activity to be done in moderation. Then if you really, really enjoy it, like you were saying, you're really in tune with a specific game or activity or career path in esports, then you can go further down that and explore the more time investment you need to put in and so on. But I absolutely agree with you there, James. And I'm thinking off the top of my head here, there are some really nice clips I'll be able to pull from this interview, put up on LinkedIn, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, bits of advice that I think could be super useful, and putting the VOD out after this will be very helpful to a lot of people out there, I think. So we've been on stream about 30-40 minutes now. I'll probably come to the last few points and then ask more people on stream if they have any questions. And guys, if people watching, if you want to ask James any questions, please do. Just fire the questions away in the chat, and we can review and try and get them answered. But one thing I wanted to ask you, James, is that there's one thing which isn't really a positive topic, but one I feel was important for potential pro players or those who want a career in esports, and that's publisher power. Publishers, they set the rules, they provide the prize pools, and as such they have the power to drop esports from their games, which is sadly what we saw with Blizzard do with Heroes of the Storm esports, which obviously affected you last year. What do you think players should consider here, and how did you see it affect your teammates and yourself in Heroes of the Storm esports?
So the closure of HTC and all Heroes of the Storm esports programs was devastating for a lot of the fans and all of the people that worked on it, obviously. People went from one of the most successful times of their lives to basically unemployed pretty much overnight. And that was very jarring, and that was surprising, and that's not something that anyone kind of planned for. But the skills and opportunities that the players and the casters and the production staff and the admins were able to get from the journey and from HTC are both amazing and powerful. And so, for example, I'm right here, I'm working a dream job at Dignitas, which is something that, going back 5 years, I would have never believed would have been able to happen. We've got players like Zalia and Breeze who are already at the very top of other games in just a few short months. Players like Fan and JPL have already moved on and started their streaming careers and are doing great there. You've got casters who have moved on, like Kalaris and Dreadnought, and Gillyweed as well, who again have made successful careers for themselves in other parts of esports broadcasts. So as much as publishers have a lot of power over individual scenes, but esports as a whole is huge, and the opportunities and the skills that you can learn are numerous and strong. And as long as you make sure that you learn those skills and you prepare yourself for a future where you're no longer a player, which you should be doing anyway, by the way. Pro playing is not an indefinite thing. There is a time limit, no matter what is the cause of it ending. Maybe it's your skill decaying, maybe it's the publisher no longer supporting eSports, maybe it's you don't want to do it anymore. And so you should have a backup plan anyway. And if you have that, then again, it's not ideal. It's not something anyone's going to be happy about, but it is something that can happen, and it is something that can have great implications if people do as best as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great answer. One thing I wanted to ask, James, you're also at a challenger level in League of Legends, which is obviously the top level. A very small percentage of players reach that. And what made you want to work in business development rather than as a pro gamer in a different game to Heroes of the Storm? How easy is it to make that transition from game to game? Because one of your former teammates, Snitch, he's playing League of Legends right now, isn't he? He's streaming and so on. I guess how can you tell? Is it just a point where it feels right to stop playing pro and move into a position like biz dev? How did you sort of make that decision?
Yeah, I guess speaking more generally about becoming a pro in 2 games first, becoming a pro in just 1 game is incredibly difficult. And becoming a pro player in 2 games is even harder. So this is definitely not something you can plan for. This is not something you can hope for. Oh, sorry. It is something you can hope for, but it's not something you can plan for. Something I touched on earlier was specific skills. And some players have skill sets that are very suited to multiple games. So, for example, Zelia is one of them. The 2 games, kind of the only 2 games he's good at, actually, is Heroes of the Storm and World of Warcraft. And it just so happens that his skill set and his tastes and his motivations line up almost perfectly with both of those games.
Yeah.
And so for him, it's almost very easy in that, he's dedicated, he's very talented, he's got fantastic skills that he developed in his time with Dignitas, and that he developed on his own as well. And so for him, it's kind of very easy to transition. In terms of me and why I didn't go that route, I'm very philosophical in the way that I approach my life and my career. And for me, kind of no matter what, I knew that Heroes of the Storm is the only game that I want to play professionally.
Right.
Because that's kind of just something that's meaningful to me. This was my game. I gave everything I could. I don't think there's ever going to be another game that I can think about so much and think about in the same way. And nor do I want to. Because that's very special to me, for Heroes to be that one game. And so even though when I was playing Heroes, I was actually on some of the top 10 leaderboards for PUBG. And I had some people reaching out to me asking if I wanted to play like competitive PUBG when I was a Heroes Pro player.
Wow.
And obviously I didn't, because first off, I wasn't even very good at PUBG. It was just the leaderboards were broken. But the second off, that's just not something that I wanted to do. And so I definitely knew that I wanted to do something else, and business development was a fantastic area with great opportunities in a place that I love. So I was very happy to take it.
It makes a lot of sense, and we've had another good question here coming from Elliot, who's on the British eSports team, has just joined as a schools and colleges liaison officer, which is super exciting. And Elliot asks, what are the benefits of working in the industry as a professional, in biz dev, rather than a player? What is your day-to-day job like, and what do you enjoy about it specifically?
So for me, I think it's kind of similar in a lot of ways, which is weird because it's also very different. But the way that it makes me feel is very similar, in that I still have an amazing team that we work very closely with, and we work in a very fast-paced team environment. The same way that I had my teammates when I was a pro player, I now have my management team in in the business world. So for me, that's very similar. It gives me the same kind of feelings of camaraderie and success and hanging out, basically. So that's great, and that's amazing. There's also, for me, I'm driven by goals and success and achievements and these kind of things in my career. And the same way that in esports, it was, okay, getting better, winning this, winning that, like competing with this team, etc., was how you could measure your progress.
Yeah.
There's almost even more of that in the business world in terms of securing deals, doing good work on partnerships, promotions, etc., and future career paths. So in a lot of the ways, it's the same for me, and in a lot of ways, it's different in terms of the work is, work and spreadsheets and proposals and PowerPoints and stuff like that, as opposed to reviewing VODs and playing games, but it kind of has the same effect on me and my psyche. So that's kind of why I enjoy it so much. It's got a lot of parallels.
That's brilliant. I mean, I personally got into esports and gaming because I wasn't good enough to be a pro, and esports wasn't really a thing back then when I was, a teenager. I wanted to be a games journalist back when games magazines were a thing, and there's a few around still, but nowhere near as popular. Twitch and YouTube are the new games magazines, and it's great. I feel very privileged to be, working as a content creator in esports. So lastly then, James, a bit of future gazing, if you will. How do you see esports changing or developing over the next couple of years? I know it's a hard question to answer because ultimately no one knows, but as someone who's been in esports at this top level, working as a pro for a while, you've seen a lot of things that people new to esports won't have seen. What are your guesses for the next few years, or what would you like to see as well, I guess?
Yeah, so I think there's probably two major landscape changes that we'll see. And that's probably the increase in audience that comes, as we spoke about earlier, from this younger generation rising up, from the increased awareness from programs in schools and universities. And so there's going to be a dramatic increase in audience, I think, which is going to be great, obviously, because more audience means bigger scale for the companies involved, means more opportunities, more jobs, more money.
Yeah.
And the other is going to be the increase in outside investment. So sports teams, for example, Dignitas is owned by Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment, who also own the Philadelphia 76ers, the New Jersey Devils, and the Prudential Center, which are three world-class sports entertainment franchises. And Dignitas is one of them, which is great and amazing. And I think we're going to see more of that as well as the years move forward. I also think we're probably going to see the next Fortnite. Every few years there's this game that just takes the world by storm, and everyone's playing it. And I think the first one was probably World of Warcraft. First one since I've been following anyway. There's probably a few more before that. Probably Call of Duty between that, League of Legends in 2012-ish. And now it's probably Fortnite. And in the next maybe 3-5 years, we're going to see another one of those, I think. And hopefully that's a game that embraces esports. And if it does, then I think this could be possibly the biggest esport almost overnight and huge for the whole industry. There's also probably going to be a more dramatic shift towards franchising and more permanent models of league play. So that's something we saw in Overwatch and League of Legends recently. Obviously, it's now been announced that we're going to see it in Call of Duty 2. And there's rumors now that Nate Nanza has moved over to Epic that we could be seeing either Rocket League or Fortnite, which would be amazing as well. So that when that happens, that opens up a lot more revenue and opportunities for everyone involved, to be honest. It opens up more jobs, more money for players, more money for everyone. So in my opinion, franchising is a very good thing for the esports industry. And I think lastly, on the kind of player side, we're going to see a lot more focus on player development. So we're going to have more nutritionists, sports psychologists, physiotherapists, a lot more focus on how do we get the best possible performance from these athletes, because that's something that doesn't happen too much right now. And I think it's just an open area that no one knows the answer to, and it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of smart people. And I think we've almost got enough time and almost enough smart people now. So hopefully we'll see that start ramping up in the next few years.
Absolutely. I agreed with a lot of those comments there, James. This has been a really great interview, and it's made me realise I've really missed doing these live Twitch interviews, which I used to do a while ago. So hopefully we can make this a regular occurrence on the British eSports Association Twitch channel. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If there's any suggestions anyone has, or any last minute questions, suggestions on who you'd like to see us interview next and speak to, please let us know. It's been really great, James. I'll put the VOD out. I'll put some video clips out on our website, our newsletter, Twitter and so on, and LinkedIn. Is there anything else you wanted to add, James? We've covered an awful lot. Is there anything that we might have missed?
Yeah, no, a huge breadth of questions here. So I think first off, huge thanks to you and the British eSports Association for having me on. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope that I've provided some good answers for you guys. And obviously, thanks to everyone watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I gave good answers to your questions too. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Dignitas and all of my management team that I work with. They're amazing, and it's a lot of fun to work with them.
Excellent. Thanks so much again, James. And we've had some nice comments in the chat thanking you and thanking us both. Perfect. Great timing as well. We're under the hour mark, so it should be a nice easy VOD for people to watch. We'll put that on YouTube. And thanks again, James, for your time. It's been fantastic, and I look forward to seeing what you do in the future and what Dignitas does in the future. We've got Odie on our advisory board, and it's one of those UK esports success stories, so it's it's great to have you guys involved with what we're doing as well. And Odie's given talks at a few places and things before. If you're ever interested in doing any of that stuff with British esports, you're more than welcome to in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's been a lot of fun, so yeah, thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thanks very much, James, and for everyone watching, and see you all soon.